was a rumble in the jungle. Once I heard Dad was outside again counting birds, and Mama plugged in a nightlight, and I saw the queen of the
Welcome to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I am your host, Liz. And I'm your host, Natalie. And tonight we should prepare ourselves for a funny birth story from Alissa Alter. She is live from Brooklyn, New York.
Woo!
Thanks so much for coming on the podcast tonight.
And I'm your guest host, Alissa Alter. I did not prepare an opening monologue, but I can make one up.
I felt like I had to add that because
that was so good. I mean, I'm so flattered.
So a little bio about Alissa. She is the Amy Poehler of vaginas, which let's just keep that in our minds forever. Women's health expert and advocate, and then former Broadway performer and St. Louis friend. She was on the Muni in the Muni in 2015.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Author, speaker, and mover shaker. So Alissa, if you want to tell us a little bit about your family and everything like that.
Okay, great. It's interesting. When you first say, tell me about your family, I think this is one of the transitions when you become a mom that no one talks about. So therefore I'm talking about it because that's sort of what I do is talk about the things we're not supposed to talk about or don't talk about. Is that, in my head, I'm like, does she mean my parents and my brother? And then it's no, my family is my husband and my son. Right. Because there is this transition from your family of origin to now, my family is me and my husband, Jeremy, and our son, Everett, who it will be 3 in October.
Mm-hmm.
And, that transition is rough and weird as a new parent. And it's also, it continues to show up where it's it's not choosing who's your favorite. It's just a natural evolution that affects everyone. But I think because we don't talk about it, it gets real weird in a way that could be not necessarily avoided, but just made somewhat easier.
What does Jeremy do?
Jeremy is he manages a software engineering team for a mobile advertising company. When we first met and were dating and I asked him what he did, he answered, and I started telling people he was a hardware or a computer hardware engineer. I had no idea. And then I was I don't know, he does coding, beep, boop, boop, boop. And then I just started telling people he's the king of the nerds, which I don't even know if that's nice to say, but so he's very technologically, knowledgeable, and I always joke that he must see me on my computer and just like nails on a chalkboard. It must just torture him. As if I'm typing with just my pointer fingers, do, 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 I know 3 shortcuts, and he's you could just hit those buttons. What? It's magic. Because I come from a more creative background. In college, I majored in both dance and Spanish, which the Spanish major was sort of by accident. I just kept taking Spanish classes. And then they were if you just take 2 more classes, you have a major. And I was oh, all right, cool. So I did that. And then immediately moved to New York after college, New York City, and started auditioning and performing, and I've performed all over the world, and, I waitressed for about 6 months and then was this is trash. I'm going to get my Pilates certification because if I need a job, a quote unquote survival job or something that I'm doing outside of auditioning or in between shows, I want at least the energy that I'm spending to be worth it, or to feel a return on it. And for a little bit more predictability and not working till 1 a.m. And so I did that all through my performance career. And it was actually 2015 was a very big year for me because I was married previously. And it was around like, the marriage had been deteriorating for, in hindsight, years. But sort of one of the like last straws that broke the camel's back was that my ex-husband presented the idea of starting a family. And I was like, I can't have a baby with you. Like I can't bring someone else into this dynamic. Like this is not a good relationship. This is not, no.
Yeah.
And that I, in a lot of ways, think that that's really kind of that moment was the beginning of my motherhood journey. Because then I was thinking about how I was advocating for these theoretical, like hypothetical children, right? And not for myself. And I was like, if I'm not willing to bring a child into this, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So true.
Like, if that doesn't feel safe, like, do I like it here? Do I feel safe? What do I feel here? And it made it very, very clear. And then 2015 was also the year I performed at the Muni. And I did one more show after that and realized that in my personal evolution, some of the same things that had led to my divorce were the exact same reasons that I was going to stop performing in that capacity, auditioning for sort of what I would say like commercial musical theater. And I got back into comedy and improv, and I wrote my own show, and I performed a cabaret that was all about divorce and dating in New York in your 30s. And I throughout all of this, I had been building my Pilates business, which had also then evolved into focusing on pelvic health. Because after I got divorced and I started talking about how unhappy I'd been and some of the things that I'd been tolerating, all of these people were coming forward, either saying, I had no idea, Alyssa, you never said anything. And I was like, well, I'm not supposed to. And like everyone says, you get married and you stop having sex. So the fact that like we never had sex, like, and I'm not saying that as like a turn of phrase, like sex was not a part of our relationship. And that wasn't like, we were not like two asexual individuals who were in agreement on that going into it. Like we were not having sex. I just assumed it was fine because people don't have sex when they're married, and people say that, but I think they say it as a joke and like are still sometimes having sex. Or like, then I was having these conversations about like, well, how often should you have sex? I'm like, I don't know. I think that's like an individual decision, but like, if you're not happy with it, you should probably, I would recommend saying something like, because I said nothing for so long that this is where we ended up. And that was also the beginning of me being like, I picture Scarlett O'Hara with like the potato in the field, like, I will never go hungry again. I'm like, I will never suffer in silence again. Like, I'm going to tell everyone everything. And I started teaching, or I launched my company, Pilates for Your Privates, which is Pilates all centered around pelvic health. And so I figured my clientele I was just going to get moms, right? Or people who are pregnant, people who had babies. But a lot of the people who came to me hadn't had children, weren't married. Because when it comes to our pelvic floor and our anatomy, we all have questions, and we all have a pelvic floor, and people who've had babies are not the only ones who have pelvic floor dysfunction or even perfectly functional, like optimally functioning anatomy, but don't know. Because like, what's normal? I don't know. Like, am I peeing too often? And like, the number of people who've come to me been like, I don't know who else to ask, or I don't feel like I can ask anyone else but you, which I take as a huge compliment, a huge honor. It is not lost on me like how vulnerable and intimate that is. And it really is. Like, I feel very honored that people know that I'm not going to judge you. I'm just going to share information or be like, here's the question I would ask, or, that I've also nerded out so hard in this area that I'm like, see a urogynecologist. It's like, what's a urogynecologist? Like, what? There's a physical therapist just for pelvic floors? Yes, there are so many things that exist that we don't know about because we're not supposed to talk about any of this because God forbid somebody says vagina. Right? Like my hoo-ha, my private part, my whatever. People have the funniest names. And it's like, well, that's a vagina. And also like if you're talking about your vagina, talk about your vagina, but like your vulva is not your vagina. That's there's a distinction.
It has parts.
You have parts like urine comes out of a different hole than you have sex in.
Guys, listen.
But also women, listen, there's different holes, and they do different things. And like a penis doesn't fit into your urethra. Or if you've like stretched and like made that happen, I would imagine just like based on my knowledge of how muscles function, that you are probably maybe experiencing some pee-pee problems. Like, because like each thing is designed for something specific. And while muscles are resilient, there is a limit. And then, there's part of me that like, I don't know if I believe this or I just say this to make myself feel better. But, I then met my husband, Jeremy, and I was very clear that, I wanted to have a family. And, I took a train like straight to Insanityville. Like once I went off birth control and tried to get pregnant, like every month I was panicking that because I got my period, it meant that I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant. I had a lot of fear and anxiety around that. But then got pregnant pretty quickly. And I felt really good because like I'm an expert in pelvic health. Like I got this. Like I know how to take care of my body. I'm going to set myself up for like just a really healthy delivery and a great recovery. I had helped so many people do that before. And then I had a baby. And and it's really true. Like you can know all of it, but you know nothing. And I think for me, in hindsight, I really would have benefited from having a doula. And I'm very close with my OBGYN and I love her. And I think that what I underestimated was that like other dimension that I would go to, that even though I knew a bunch of things, like it wouldn't be my rational mind like that. Like I wouldn't be able to look at myself like that. Like I would just, it's like a level of presence that there isn't room for anything else, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, like I was not able to also accurately or adequately advocate for myself. And again, all of this in hindsight, I was in back labor, which again, I bet like if I'd been holding my friend's hand, I could have been like, try this. Like maybe if you just stop laying on your back, like you'll be okay. Like just stand up, like see if that helps. But no one said anything to me. And I'm like in the triage room, just like literally screaming, this is so fucked up. Who designed this? What the fuck? Why is no one helping me? Just like screaming. And this is horrible. And my husband's looking at me terrified because he, I've turned into a monster. And then I'm also like laughing at myself because I'm screaming out of the room. Like, why is no one helping me? This is fucked up. Like, where are you? And, I'm sure they were like, oh, it's a first time mom. Like, oh, we got a loud one. And then I'm like laughing, like, what's happening? And why is no one listening to me? Like, what the fuck is going on? And the reality was my son was sunny side up. So I was in back labor, which if you're laying on your back is horrendous.
It's miserable all around. I had a sunny side up baby too. It's terrible. Count me out.
I also like when contractions started and they were intensifying, it would happen. I'd be like, oh, I do not like this. I do not like this at all. This is Jeremy. This is why is it like this? And in between, I was like, this is ridiculous. If this happened to a man, they would have changed this.
God.
We would have developed something different. Like, why is this? How this is what we get?
I do not like this, Sam.
I do not like this. I don't like it. And then again, in between laughing and being like, wow, that shit is fucked up. It's not cool. So I got an epidural pretty quickly because I couldn't stand the pain. And it's like, again, in hindsight, they were like, do you think you can walk to your room? And I did. I got up and walked. And they were like, how are you feeling? I was like, better, but I never want to feel that again. Needle in my back, please. Which again, like, I think if I'd had a doula, just like, that third party, that person could have been like, why don't you try like walking around a little bit more and see if that can like progress things a little bit more before we do the epidural.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, after I felt what I felt, I was like, I don't want that again ever, because it was horrible. And an epidural, I the anesthesiologist, I was like, it started kicking in. I was like, I just want you to know that you are doing God's work. I'm like, I mean, I was raised Jewish and I'm not like particularly religious, like culturally, sure, but you are my favorite person in this hospital and you need to know you're doing God's work. If you want me to tell your other patients, I am happy to give you a testimonial. You can tell them I
5 stars.
Leave a 5-star review.
Are you on Yelp? Because really, you're it. You are it. And
yeah, what a great job. You get to like make people feel better while they're feeling terrible.
Right. I mean, you also have to handle needles, which that's not for me. I'm really glad it's for some other people like this person who was there that day for me, who I could pass them on the street. I have no idea who they are, but I love them.
I just know that my guy's name was Christopher, and exactly. I could pass him on the street, look at them, have a conversation with them, and I'd have no idea
that Christopher was
what I needed.
Changed your life.
Always in your heart.
Yeah.
Christopher. Maybe now in my memory, my person will be named Chris. Although it was a woman who did it, but then I was there I was there a while, so there changed shifts, and then it was a man came back at one point to check it. And, things slowed down from there. I slept, whatever. And I don't know, it's such a time warp. I had no sense of time passing.
Mm-hmm.
There was my labor slowed. There was Pitocin involved. There was, I don't know. I don't know. No one really told me anything, and I was like, okay, I guess we're just doing it. And so eventually we started pushing. And again, you could tell me that happened in 20 minutes, or you could tell me the truth was it was 3.5 hours. And I don't know. I have no idea. What I do know is that again, no one was talking to me. Everyone was in there doing their jobs and doing their job well. But again, this is like hindsight and with some time that I can see. It's like this is a symptom of the way that the medical system treats a birthing person, which is just like a body, right? Like not the person. And so my my son inherited from not my side of the family a very big head. And he was sunny side up. And apparently after the fact, my OB told me that my perineum, which I really call a taint, that's like what I learned as a teenager. So like, that's what I think, like was short or something. He got stuck in my pelvis, but was so far down that no one ever mentioned a C-section. No one ever talked about it. No one asked. I never heard it mentioned. But what did happen was that there were 2 midwives on top, like they called in more people, and there were 2 midwives on top of me. I think technically it's called fundal pressure. And what it is it's 2 grown adults on top of you, pushing all of their body weight onto the top of your belly to shove your baby out of your vagina.
Holy shit.
And it was terrifying. And while, I mean, I think another part of the thing was that my epidural worked so well that I felt nothing, that I think even though, and they said, they were like, you're pushing really well, which I think is also because throughout pregnancy, I knew how to train these muscles, and being a dancer my entire life, my connection to and ability to, even if I couldn't feel it, kind of recruit and make things happen is pretty good. But I couldn't feel anything, but I could feel the pressure. And at one point I took the woman's hand and I shoved her off me. It's like, I don't like that. But I think that at that point I mean, I don't know if he was in distress or he was like, at this point, it became clear, like things were not good. And my husband was terrified. But I didn't know that at the time, because I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And like, why are you on top of me?
Did anyone ever ask you that, like, or that these midwives are going to come in and help you? Like, how did they even get a part of this?
I don't know. I think like at one point, like there was like a nurse came in and out, that it seemed more like a shift rotation, or like she had to go check on another patient or something. And then someone else came in and was like, hey, do you need a hand? Like, I will say, like, their bedside manner in that sense, in sort of like, it's not like they ran in and were like, I heard this is getting weird, like we're coming in, like, ah.
But
like, I think that added to me this sense of like, it was like, I just felt like I don't understand what's happening, because you guys are also making jokes with me, and like, like HGTV was on the TV. Like, and I was like, I just never thought I'd give birth to HGTV at one point. And so like, I'm cracking jokes because also that's what I do when I'm like scared and uncomfortable, and they're laughing and whatever. So I'm like, we must be cool. But then they're like on top of me, and it like, I'm exhausted. And then like, finally he came out, and again, I feel nothing. They put him on my chest. You know, oh my God, that moment though, I just was crying. I just kept saying like, there you are. Like, there you are.
Aww.
There, you're here. It's you. Like, here you are. Like, I'm your mom. You're here. It was like, because I also was 3 days overdue, and I kept having these like really angry meltdowns that why didn't he want to come? Like, why doesn't he want to meet me? Like, all I want is to meet him, and he clearly has no interest in meeting me. And like, I'm his, like these insane breakdowns. So I was very happy he was here. And then And then I was like, my husband said, he was like, can I sit down? I'm like feeling a little dizzy. So he sat down and they brought him some juice. And I was like, I would love some juice. So they brought me some juice. And then I was like, I'm nauseous. And they were like, okay, we'll give you Zofran. And I was like, I'm going to throw up. And they were like, okay, we'll get the Zofran. I was like, no, someone needs to take the baby. I'm going to throw up. So my husband took the baby. I threw up and passed out.
Oh my God.
And so my husband's holding our son and sitting down. He's already dizzy because whenever it came out, the amount of blood that came out, like apparently there was like a huge, like the sound of it hitting the floor, the look of it everywhere, because so that happened and I passed out and I was passed out, so I don't know what happened. But when I woke up, I looked at my doctor and she said to me, you're going to be fine. And I was like, okay. And then I said, why are you poking my asshole?
What?
Because I could feel her poking my asshole. And she was like, you're going to be fine. And I was like, but why are you poking my asshole? And then I threw up and passed out again.
What?
So by the time I actually really started waking up, no one told me what had happened. I think I held Everett again. But I think then I was like, I'm going to take a nap. I'm just really tired. So then I guess as some of the meds were wearing off or whatever, enough time had passed, in order to go to the maternity ward, they needed me to be able to get up and go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And walked, and they were like, do you think you can walk to the toilet? I was like, by myself? No way. From the epidural. They were like, what if we help you? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, she was like, do you think if one of us holds your arm? I was like, there should probably be two of you. I don't know, safety first. And so we go into the bathroom and they were like, can you sit down on the toilet? And again, I was like, not by myself. And so they helped me sit down. And I remember then more blood pouring out of me.
Oh.
They wiped me and cleaned me, which I was like, no one's mentioned this about post. Is this what happened? Is this a standard service? What? Does everybody, is this the VIP treatment? What's happening? And they were like, do you feel like you're going to pass out? And I was like, I don't think so. I was like, but I'm pretty tired. And they were like, do you think you can go upstairs? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And I ended up, they put me in a wheelchair and wheeled me up. And they were like, do you want to hold your baby? And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. So my husband carried him. So Jeremy was just still in shock because he thought I was it. Again, there was no information given to us that he thought I was dying.
Mm-mm.
There was so much blood. I threw up. I passed out. I was not conscious. I was like, it's not, I don't think I should hold our baby. It was a mess. And again, no one really said otherwise.
Was it a postpartum hemorrhage or it wasn't?
There was some of that. There was something where my uterus wasn't contracting.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I remember snippets of it because I was in and out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was some of that. And there was a lot of they did a lot of testing on me for the few days that I was there because I just missed needing a blood transfusion.
Mm-hmm.
And it was if you're lower than 19, you get one. And I was like, at 19, 19 what? I don't know. Maybe the number wasn't 19, but that's the number I remember. So that's what it is in this story. and they were like, asking me about like my symptoms. And I guess I wasn't symptomatic of like so much blood loss that they were like, we won't give it to you since you seem to be feeling okay. And you're like right at the cusp.
Yeah.
But then like by the time we got upstairs, that was the first time someone told me, and they initially said I had a 3rd-degree tear.
Mm-hmm.
But then later a nurse came in, and I'm cracking jokes because that's what I do. And I'm like, how long have you been a nurse? Like, have you worked here for a long time? Whatever, just like deflecting, I think, because I was really just, I don't know what the word is, like traumatized, in shock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And she was like, I've seen women with 4th-degree tears and they carry on. Like, I'm going to tell them about you. Like, you're like handling this so well. And in my head, I was like, handling what? Like, I didn't understand what had happened. Like, no one ever clearly explained what this meant. Like, this was my first baby. So it's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
And
when
again, like, you can read all the books, but like, you don't know until you. What were you going to ask?
I was gonna say, like, so when you said, like, why are you poking my asshole? Was that because you had a 4th-degree tear and you had no idea?
It was because she had probably at that point already repaired my rectum and was sewing together my anal sphincter.
Oh, okay. That makes sense now. Okay. I was like, what do you mean? Like, why is she down there?
Yeah, like I was like, that's my asshole. Like the baby came out of my vagina. But it turns out what I actually had is what I now call a rectovaginal birth.
Mm-hmm.
And my I might be generous in saying that she's my friend, but my friend Jill Cargman says that it's the baby came out of like my vaginas. Because and like all I could think about and kept making jokes about was the Spice Girls song "When to Become One," because that's what happened.
I'm really happy the Spice Girls made an intro into our podcast.
I wouldn't think I'd be laughing this hard at a 4th-degree tear.
Oh my God, I know. And it's all you can do because it is so fucked up. It is so fucked up and it happens way more than we think, but also not a ton, but also way more than we think. And the fact, like, I have one friend who was like, okay, here's the deal. When they say push, it's your butthole. You got to think about your butthole and it's going to feel like your butthole's going to explode, but that's where you need to push. And she was the only person who mentioned any sort of butt stuff. And I'm like, we are doing women a disservice. All women and birthing people need to know that your butt is involved. It could tear. And also you can get better, because that was really like, I mean, I felt so gaslit from my family, from people around me. And I think it's because no one understood.
Yeah.
No one really grasped the gravity of this. And like in the hospital, some of the nurses and my OB like understood medically, like what was going on. And like my OB, like I have her number. I was texting her. She was communicating with me, answering all of my questions. Like she did great, but there isn't then a discussion of like what that does to you emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. I don't know. I should check in with my therapist and my psychiatrist to like know if I'm cured. Like, do I get a certificate? But like I've been working through like legit PTSD from it. Like it really messed me up. And then it was really hard when we got home And, I'd be like, well, I can't really sit up. And then people would be like, oh, yeah, you get over it. Like that happens to everyone. And I was like, I, I have stitches in my asshole. Like, I don't like why I'm trying. And like, there were times where I was like, I'm not really okay. Like, I'm not doing okay. I need help. And people are like, oh no, that's all like literally just like, yeah, no, that's how it is. But isn't the baby magical? And like at one point I yelled at my husband, was like, fuck the baby. The baby is fine. I am not. Like, why is no one helping me? And he was like, I'll do it. Like, what do you need? I was like, I don't know how I'm now supposed to also figure that out. Like, am I not dealing with enough? Like, I can't. I'm going to lie down. If the baby's hungry, I guess bring him. Like, I don't know. And like looking to me for the answers because I'm the mom. And I kept being like, I too have never had a baby. And out of the two of us, I'm the one with stitches in my asshole. Like,
oh my God.
You figure it out.
So true.
I can't. Nothing feels more relatable.
Like that's something that there's so much. Hence, like I'm preaching to the choir. Like you created this podcast, like from this same feeling of just like, I just had a full baby, like a full human baby capable of breathing air in the world, right? A full human baby, fingernails, eyelashes, 2 sets of teeth in its skull that we can't see. Okay, I've grown a huge human baby. I mean, they're tiny, but not compared to a vagina. Or if you're having a cesarean, not compared to like coming out the front door either. Like, why is the assumption now that like unless I have not met anyone this happened to, but like, it's not like I downloaded a bunch of information into my brain and I now know the answers. And like, yes, there are some instinctual things, but also those instincts are really born out of, I believe like, and based on the sciencey things that I know, there could be other science things I don't know, like the way our brains change, we're just in tune with the baby and we look at them and we listen to them. And something we talked about before recording, but referencing, my opening monologue, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler in their books, they talk about the rules of improv. Like those were the best things that prepared me for parenthood because you are present in the scene, you accept the current reality that you are in, and you play to the top of your intelligence. So like my husband is also fucking capable of that. But there were so many times looking at me like, what do I do? And I would just be like, I am new here also.
Yeah, run that
I
list.
don't fucking know.
Don't know.
He's like, but you do it so well. Like you seem to. And I was like, I am throwing spaghetti at the fucking wall, and whatever fucking sticks is the thing that I now say we're doing. Like that's my method. Like I don't know what you think I know. Which is funny because like a lot of times in terms of like our relationship or approaching marriage or like when we were planning our wedding, I understood why he deferred to me. I had a wedding before. I had been married before. I did have a whole bunch of information that he, as someone who hadn't been married, didn't have, right? But at the same time, I was like, also, Jeremy, I've never been married to the right person. You and I have never been married. So like some of that stuff doesn't really apply here. It's going to show up because that's called my baggage. But like that doesn't apply here. Like it shouldn't live here.
Yeah.
But with parenting, like I don't know. And again, I'm the one like I have a picture somewhere. Like I just want to be like, look at how many accessories are on the back of the toilet. Like, that's what I have to do every time I pee. Can you Google the thing? Like, can you, like, you just are just going to the bathroom. You're just going to the bathroom like you have your whole life. Okay. I'm going to the bathroom wondering if my stitches are going to open and all of my vital organs are going to fall into the toilet. I mean, that could have been possible. That's not like such a dramatic, crazy fear to have. I was held together with stitches, right? That like without them, there was just one big hole at the bottom. Like it was not cool. And, you know, it triggered all this stuff for me. I mean, as a Pilates instructor who had built a business called Pilates for Privates, who had supported women through pregnancies and childbirth, like successfully, helped tons of women who were postpartum, whether it was like months or like decades, stop peeing in their pants and like enjoy sex again. Like, you know, I felt really confident. And this, I was like, I am a liar. Who, like, I was like, I failed myself. I failed my clients. Like, who do I think I am? I don't know anything. Like, this wasn't supposed to happen to me. Like, if you know, I was supposed to sneeze and the baby comes out. But like, it's also like in a lot of ways, and my OB said this at one point, and I promise you, she said this in a way that was like, we laughed about it and it was said with love and compassion. I feel like there are contexts where it could have been snotty. It was not. Where she was like, in a way, like you're kind of like the best person for this to happen to. Because she was like, your repair healed really well because your muscles were really strong and healthy. And like, she said this and like, it grosses me out, but I'm also proud, but also this is why I'm not a surgeon. She was like, it was like the muscles, like the tissue just wanted to come back together. Yeah. I'm just like, ugh, but also like, thank God. Like, and like my recovery, like it was brutal because in what world wouldn't it be? However, you know, I'm in the 4th degree club. Like literally I'm in the group on Facebook. I follow the accounts. Like I've connected with the people and I have had a really successful recovery. Like, yes, it took close to a year for me to be able to stand up off the floor without farting involuntarily because your pelvic floor, it's part of like, it's a pressure system and mine was broken, right? So it took a while to heal. But I can do that now. And, you know, I don't shit my pants, although that did have, not Jeremy. Jeremy's my husband. Everett's my son. Everett from daycare brought home a stomach bug. And I'm just going to be honest that I don't know if I would have stood a chance before having him. You know, it just, that one was brutal. So, but besides that, which I don't blame my sphincter for, you know, like I'm continent. I have great sex. I feel confident in my body. I can still I can do splits. You know, I'm dancing, I'm jumping, and it's been the emotional side of it that really has taken the longest time. And I think that complete loss of control, that feeling of being gaslit which I think just as women, we know that feeling. And this was just it so heightened that it lit a fire of holy rage inside of me that I don't think will ever burn out. And as a result, like you guys, I launched a podcast called Myth of Motherhood, which I did for a year. And then I started a new show, Alter Your Life, which is like building and expanding upon what I started with Myth of Motherhood, but expanding outside of motherhood to really include the entire female experience. Because again, like so much of what was coming up in motherhood and that was resonating with people, mothers and non-parents, are part of this female experience of like being gaslit, of like you're not supposed to tell anyone. You're not supposed to tell anyone you're married and not having sex. You're not supposed to tell anyone if you're married and you're having like fucking amazing sex all the time. And like you have sex twice a day and you like can't get enough of it and whatever. I don't know. You can't tell anyone if you're married and you two have great sex and you also have sex with other people. I don't know. I don't know your life, but whatever it is, I don't know because well, number one, it's none of my business. Like boundaries, but also like we're never supposed to talk about it.
Mhm.
Right. And we're never supposed to talk about that. Like, I don't like, I don't even, I still don't have, I mean, I've written about it so much. So I do have a lot of words about it, but I also still do not have the words to speak about like how awful it was.
Yeah.
Like, and just how abandoned I felt.
Yeah.
That's why, and again, I said after my divorce, like, I'll never suffer in silence again. I was like on Instagram, I was like, I tore my butthole. These are my bathroom accessories. Do you have any questions? Like, and like someone wrote, like, do you poop out of your vagina? And I was like, as far as I know, that's not happening. I am now going to panic about it and Google it all night and read every terrifying Google article about it because Google is terrifying postpartum.
Yeah.
Which is also why myself and my two co-founders, Ann Omland and Blair Badenhop, co-founded the platform Postpartum with No Vowels, which is a platform giving a voice to all of these things that no one tells us, or that it's like postpartum is like Fight Club. What happens postpartum stays postpartum, and like you can't know until you go, like, and then once you're in the club, it's like, oh yeah, it's super fucked up here. Okay, so here's the rules. Like, okay, here's what we.
That is so true.
So we created this platform to provide, like, to be a space to get your answers, your questions answered in a way that doesn't then leave you not sleeping in between feedings. And I'm pointing at myself during this, and instead just reading Google and silently crying into your pillow, which I don't know. Maybe that was just me, but I don't think I'm the only one.
Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of Alyssa's story. We'll be back next week with part 2, where we'll dive deeper into Alyssa's postpartum experience. And thank you to Alissa Alter for being so open about her journey. You can find more info about Alissa at alissaalter.com and check out her 2 podcasts, Myth of Motherhood and Alter Your Life. We'll have links to all of those and Alyssa's Instagram as well as our own in the show notes. Please do us a favor and rate and review our podcast so we can continue to grow. See you next week. Thanks.